Good morning. It's July 8th, and we're in Acts 26 today. And I really love this chapter. There's so much that's going on here. Lots that we could talk about. And one thing that I love is the interaction between King Agrippa and Paul here. Um, Agrippa has some questions he wants to hear from Paul. Gets to hear all of Paul's testimony, which I think is also an amazing thing. That Paul talks about his own reluctance to come to know Jesus and then his obedience to him once he had the vision. So he recounts that story again for us here in the book of Acts. It appears here three times in this book, and obviously very um, important part in Paul's life, but also in the life of the church that God would convert somebody like him and then use him for the spreading of the gospel. Then when he finally gets a chance to talk to Agrippa, he talks about his own persecution of the church and the wrong way that he was going and how he would even go to foreign cities and eventually to Damascus to persecute Christians. And then at the end of his speech, it says this. Festus actually interrupts. Verse 24. At this point, Festus interrupted Paul's defense. You are out of your mind, Paul, he shouted. Your great learning is driving you insane. And Paul replies, I am not insane, most excellent Festus. What I am saying is true and reasonable. And so he's both talking to Festus and to Agrippa here. And then Agrippa ends up replying, do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian? And I like Paul's response here because he has compassion on Agrippa, but also not going to swerve from his mission here. So verse 28, verse 29. Paul replied, short time or long, I pray to God that not only you, but all who are listening to me today may become what I am, except for these chains. And then I think importantly for the narrative of Acts and for church history, but also for our understanding here, the gospel and Paul's presentation of it are both exonerated in terms of their legal standing in Bernice and Agrippa's minds here. It says the king rose, and with him the governor and Bernice and those sitting with them. When they left the room, they began saying to one another, this man is not doing anything that deserves death or imprisonment. So much like Pilate had said the same thing about Jesus, that he was innocent and didn't deserve death or punishment. They're saying the same thing about Paul here. And eventually they say this, Agrippa said to Festus, this man could have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar. So that points to where God's intervention in this is going, that they're going to end up sending him on to Caesar, to Rome, at the expense of the empire, by the way, as God had planned for him and as he had promised to Paul. So that promise is going to be fulfilled here, even though it took a number of years of imprisonment before he saw the results of it. So, really interesting chapter here in Acts.